Angela?
Yes, we have people from Car4All, but we have also people from Urban community and I think a couple from Eurocities and a couple of new people, which is always good. So, and I suppose that you are also very busy with the next generation funding in all countries, because now it's like crazy with this interest calls and.
It's starting, but it's in Portugal. It's still in the discussion process. The next generation. So it was been presented. There was a period for public discussion, and then there's still no calls or anything. No.
Né nei protocolli da elaborare, né in quelli smistati, nessuna comunicazione sugli M+3.
Maria is telling us something in Italian.
Gio Maria, I think it was Gio Maria, yes.
No, è questo. Il piano di campionamento.
Gio Maria, I think you have your sound on, so you are listening to your conversation.
Non c'è niente. È arrivato il 18.1.
I will mute him. For his own sake, I think it's better.
Il febbraio.
Okay. Otherwise, it may be a personal conversation, and it's better that.
Yes. And it happened that we catch something Italian. So with some Spanish people. So I think we can start, not Eurico.
Yes, I think so. You want to do the introduction, Laura?
Yes, very briefly. Hello, everyone. My name is Laura González. I think I know more or less all of you, but just in case, I am the project coordinator of Car4All. In the framework of Car4All, in this sharing period, we are organizing a series of sessions and workshops related to funding given by our ad hoc expert, Eurico Neves. This one is the second one, but is independent from the first one. The first one was a more general overview about the different funding possibilities and the different programs, not only the next generation funding, programming of the European Union. In the case you haven't attended the first session and you want information, because we have a very, very good presentation with a lot of information, just mail me and I can send you the presentation of the first session. But as I told you, they are independent. And the second one is going to be more practical. We are going to discuss and study a case. Feel free also to suggest if you have any idea related to a project about citizen car or smart cities, other projects, feel free to share with us, because it's going to be an interactive session. It's going to be also a very good opportunity because our experts, Eurico and Miguel, they are also evaluators of projects, so they are going to give us some tips. And yeah, more or less, that's all. And I leave the floor to Miguel, our lead expert.
Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second session about the next framework program. So, as Laura said, in the first session, it was more about an overall view about new funding schemes. Today, we will focus more on hints and tips and how to make a successful proposal. So I first thank you everyone for joining. We have people from the project, but also outside the project, from cities that are working in other URBACT projects, but also members of the Eurocities network. So welcome everyone to this session. So you can use the chat if you want to make questions during the session. I will give a look, me and Laura, to the chat, and it will be useful to organize a debate during the session, but also in the last 10-15 minutes of the session. So put your questions, comments, and we will pick up to start a debate in the end of the session. So Eurico, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Laura and Miguel. So we are recording this session, first of all, as information. As Laura said, so this is the second online training that we are organizing under this topic of funding opportunities for future projects for continuation of city car development. If you miss it, the first one, you have no idea what you miss it, and I don't know how you're going to survive the next funding program, but I'm sure you'll manage, and you can still find the presentation. You can still, it was more informative about the different programs, the state that they are there, and the PowerPoint is there, and the recording also was made. You can go through the session, and we will produce a shorter version with the highlights, most important points, kind of as a teaser, but also pinpointing you to the most important points for both the first session and this second session that we are doing. This second session, so the idea is that it is more informal, more practical, and it's more focused on some hints, practical hints of how you can approach specifically Horizon Europe, but what we are going to discuss in here will be valid also for other programs, how you can try to identify suitable calls for your ideas, and then try to develop competitive proposals. It's not going to be a session about how to write proposals. I think for that we would need more time. It will be better also a presential session. It's more going on how to approach a call, how can you find relevant information, some hints how to identify some potential partners, put your idea in motion, and then to make some promotion about your own idea to maximize your chances. But we are not going into detail on how to write a proposal, also because it's so different from one program to another, from one idea to the other, that I think it's not the topic for it's not the kind of depth that we would like to have in this session. We will have, I think, more time. The last session, as I said, was a lot of information to give, so we use it really the 2 hours and then less time for discussions. Let's try to take it easier now on this session to have more time for interactions. So put your questions. If you have ideas for some projects, put them forward, and we can online try to see where they could fit, what could be a possible approach, who could be a good partner. So let's do it half online session, training session, and half brainstorming about possible ideas as well. Because also we have the time and we want to take it easy, let's just go through the participants quickly. So let's see who we have here. We have now 14 people in the room. So myself, Eurico Neves, so I'm the ad hoc expert for this project. I've been involved in Eurbac for quite a long time. Also as lead expert, I'm now also following one project from the latest call in Eurbac as lead expert. And I was the founder of Innova. We are a company with a lot of involvement in European programs and programs across Europe in general, always in the area of innovation, a lot of focus on urban development, on IT, information technologies, but other areas as well. So Miguel, you already know, is the lead expert, and Laura, the project coordinator. Then we have with us Adriana from SUSEAVA. Hello, Adriana. If you want just to say hi, so that we check that you are there. Hi, so there you are.
Hi.
Okay. Nice to have you with us again, Adriana. Then we have Ana Margarida Rocha from Aveiro, just to check that you're there. Hello. Ana, are you there? Should be, because you turned the microphone on. Okay. Okay. We have also Angela. My microphone doesn't work. Okay.
Yes, mine works. I
Okay,
I
so
speak for Margarida. She's here. We have been talking. She's
so it's not a
also
regional
here.
problem. It's not a
No,
local
no.
problem. No. The microphone. Some of the microphones work there. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Angela. We have Erika from Torino, city of Torino.
Hello. Good morning.
Hi. Hello. Good morning, Erika. Thanks for joining. We have Gabriela Lazar, also from SUSEAVA. Hello, Gabriela.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. Nice to have you with us. Then we have Gio Maria from Sassari. Hello, Gio Maria.
Hello, hi.
Hi, nice to have you with us. Then we have Hans Schalper.
Yes, that's me, Hans. I can't put the name on my screen here. I'm a lead expert for a current transfer network, Regrow City, and I've worked for ABACT as lead expert for, I don't know, 12 years or something. But in my main job, I teach and research at University on Public Service Management, leadership and strategy in particular.
Okay, thank you, Hans. Thank you. And we see your name on the screen, so it's
can you?
we can see.
Oh,
yes,
good.
yes,
Oh,
it's
very
there.
good.
And shop, perfect. So it's working. Thank you. Then we have Irina Nicolescu from Suceava as well. Hello, Irina.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. Thanks for coming. Then we have Kostas Karamakos, which is also an expert in Eurbact. Hello, Kostas. Hi, Kostas, hello. I think you also have some micro problems. It's on. I see your mic is on, but we cannot hear you. Hi, there you are. Okay, in the chat. Okay, that also works. Laura, so you already know. Miguel, you already know. And then we have Ralph from Jurmala. Hello, Ralph. How are you? Okay, in chat only. Okay, perfect. So I suppose you can all see the presentation. You can see the first slide. We will move on. So as always, I ask you to keep the microphone muted if you are not intervening. And then if you want to say something, just unmute yourself. If we are less people, so if you raise your hand, I may see it, but it's still more people than screen space. So I may not see all the hands raised. So if you want to intervene, we are not that many people, just put your microphone on and then intervene, put a question, and then we will address it. Just go at your own pace. So what we propose to discuss today, specifically for, like I said, for Horizon Europe, is how to put the ideas in motion and start from an idea in order to start developing a project. And we are going to use some examples from a call that we have recently prepared with quite a lot of European regions. We involve 15 European regions for the European Green Deal. We are going to give you some examples, how we address it, how we put things in motion, but also try to see what can we already find in Horizon Europe, picking up at least one example from Horizon Europe, which could eventually be suitable for a project led by cities or with cities participation, and that could address some of the aspects related with city car development, things like we are studying in Car for All. So it could be a potential room for continuing the development started in Car for All. And then we may discuss other ideas that you have, calls that you heard about, ideas that you want to develop and see how they would fit. So we would see how we can start from looking at a possible call and then see how, if our idea is suitable, how we could develop, how we could look for some possible approach, look for some partners, and then start to try to develop a project for this. So basically, we will cover these 6 points. The initial brainstorming, starting from the call, how we can then benchmark some of the main concepts in order to see how we could expand our idea, how we can start looking for partners, looking at the usual suspects that would be involved in such a topic, in such an idea, and could bring value to our proposal, and then focusing a little bit more on how we can develop the first concept, that one-page synopsis or abstract of the proposal, which then we could use to start doing some promotion, to start contacting some potential partners in order to expand the consortium, to start making some posts on LinkedIn and other social media in order to let people know that we are moving on that area. Eventually, if we have the opportunity, present it to commission officers, to national contact points, and then starting to make some advertising, some lobbying in the positive sense for our proposal. Then both during the preparation and after submission, how we can make a little bit more promotion, make some noise around our proposal. And then finally, we can conclude, gather some feedback, improve on what we are doing, and really move to the writing and to the development of the proposal. Let's start then by the initial analysis. So what we know from European programs is that I think more and more they are becoming less bottom-up and more top-down. So some years or a lot of years ago when I started working in European programs, and I worked for the Commission for 4 years, and at the time it was the third framework program. So it was really a long time ago, and then I moved back to Portugal. I created Innova. At the time was the start of the fourth framework program. And we had programs like ESPRIT for information technologies. We had programs like Bright URM for some of the oldest people. These names may still bring some memories. These were large research programs that had typically one call per year, and these calls were very broad, and they selected, in ESPRIT you had a call on open microprocessors, and you'll select 20 proposals or 25 or 30 proposals. So the topic was quite broad. You were given a topic, and on that topic it was very bottom-up. So it was for you really to develop your own approach, your own methodology, your own technology. Now, as we know, it's less and less that way, and it's more top-down. So we have calls for proposals that select just one project or two or three. It's rare to have now calls for proposals that approve more than 5. So when there is a call for proposals just to approve one project, it's more public procurement than call for ideas. So the Commission is not looking really for ideas. It's looking for a solution for a very well-defined problem. So there is already a very clear definition of what they want. It's like a public procurement process for a municipality, for a local government, in which they say, we want this solution. Typically the Commission doesn't go to the point of saying it has to use this platform or it has to use this technology, but it says quite a lot of what they want in terms of the challenge that must be addressed, the scope, the impact, who must be involved. So there is quite a lot of information. And if we are not able to answer to those requirements, it's going to be a waste of time. So the first thing to do, it all starts, as long as the public part is involved, it all starts with the call for proposals. In fact, as we know, it starts before, because this call for proposals come from a long process in which there is discussion, there is some influence, there is some potential lobbying, and the more we are involved in this process of defining the calls, the better. So if Card for All Cities can approach the Commission and start to suggest that it would be a good idea to have a call for proposal specifically for city cards, that will be the best approach. So that one day a call will be published that specifically asks for a group of cities to get together and to develop a city card. But it's quite time consuming. It's a process that takes a lot of time, and it doesn't always work. So now we are working with calls. And for at least the first 2 or 3 years of Horizon Europe, these calls are already defined, and that the Commission already knows what they are going to publish. So when these calls are published, like in here, for instance, for Age 2020, in a work program and a call for proposals, there is already very clear ideas on what is the challenge that must be addressed. So the problem, what is the problem that must be solved? What is the scope? Exactly some ideas on how that problem must be solved, and defining a closed perimeter around the problem. So saying this is the problem in general, that's the challenge, and now the scope, and this is what we want you to address, and this is what we want you to come with solutions. And then the expected impacts, who must be involved, what must be achieved, and what must be the final result. So all that is already included in the text of the call. And if we don't think, as a first step, if we don't see that we are in a position to answer to this, if we don't have a solution for this specific problem, for the scope, if we are not able to reach the impacts which are being demanded, then we are not in a position to answer to this. So we may have a brilliant solution, we may have a brilliant technology, but if it's not what the call asks for, then it's a waste of time. So any preparation of a proposal for H2020 or now for Horizon Europe must start by looking at the call, either if the call is already open or if it's still in the work program. Even if it's in the work program, all this basic information is already there, and seeing if we are in condition to answer to this. Because then this is what will be in the final proposal. So if we think we meet the challenge, we will need then to expand that when we start developing the proposal in the section 1 in excellence, in how we relate to the work program, how we can specifically address this challenge. If we have a solution that meets the scope that is required, we then will need to expand and present this as part of our concept and methodology. And if we think we are able to meet the expected impacts, we will need to develop this into a very strong section 2. And then in section 3, we need to explain how we are going to do it. But what is being asked in the text of the call will then need to be expanded into the full proposal. And the full proposal, it's something that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to put together. And so first thing is to make sure that we are in a condition to answer this and that we have a serious chance of putting forward a winning proposal. So we have to go through the call and check if we really have chances to win this. Let's take the example that I mentioned to you, which was the recent European Green Deal call, which closed at the end of January. So we are waiting for the results. And we were interested in this particular topic, which was for asking for climate resilient innovation packages for European Union regions. So this was the title. We were working with regions. We are working with regions as Innova. We are part of an association in Brussels that is developing startups and new solutions for regions, and that has regions as members. We have different contacts that work with regions. So in principle, we were interested. The first thing that we needed to check, and I think that will be my suggestion always to check, was to look at the title of the call, see if we could relate to it, and then look at the budget. That's an information that is always there. See what is the budget for this type of projects, and then see what is the suggested budget for each project, which the Commission always presents as a recommendation, but it's a recommendation that is normally followed by all the proposals, so it's more a rule than a recommendation. For this specific call, we could see that the budget for innovation action projects, there was also a budget for a coordination support action, but we were interested in the bigger projects, so the innovation actions. There was a budget of 42 million euros. And then the Commission said that they were expecting proposals asking between 10 to 15 million euros. So this meant that they were going to fund 3 to 4 proposals. So it was not one of those call for proposals in which they fund only one. Typically, I'm a bit skeptical about call for proposals where they fund only one. You know, my idea is that if you're going to fund one proposal, you already know what you want. You know, you already know who you want. Sometimes more than what you want, you already know who you want. Not always, of course, but if there is a call for just one proposal, I think there is a very good chance that that call is being already prepared, discussed. And if you are not part of that process, if you were not involved in those discussions, you start as an outsider and your chances are small. If we're saying 3 to 4, it's still a very low number of proposals that are going to be funded, but you already have some chance. You know, it's not just one. So even if there was 1 or 2 consortium group of organizations that were more involved in the definition of this call, there is still room for a couple of outsiders. So I think this is okay. So 3 to 4, I think it already gives you some chances which only one may not give you. So this was the first analysis. we could see that there was room for 3 to 4 proposals. So, okay, I think we were still...
Eurico, one point that happened to me sometimes, for us, I suppose for all cities is very important also the co-financing rate. And in the Horizon 2020, it's not easy to find because sometimes it's not written in the call. You have to go to the program to check the typology of the action to see the rate of financing. I don't know what's your experience, because for me, sometimes it was difficult to find, where to find the conditions to join the proposal, because it's different for companies, for public administration, and sometimes this information is not in the call.
Yes, that's true. And I'm taking that for granted. And it's not that obvious because the rules apply to the entire program, so for the 7 years. And so they are not repeated at every call because it's the same rules for all the duration of the program. And so also the Commission, when they publish the calls, they take for granted that you already know, but it may not always be the case. So basically, there are three types of instruments. We have research and innovation actions. These are projects that involve a lot of research. So if you see that they are calling for research and innovation actions, this is funded 100% for everybody. All the participants in a research and innovation action are funded 100%. Then you have innovation actions, like this was the case in here. And this is always mentioned in the call. They say innovation actions or research and innovation actions or coordination and support action. This is mentioned. And then what is not mentioned is the general rule: research and innovation action 100%, innovation action 70%. So innovation actions are funded 70%, but, and we'll come to the but in a minute, and coordinations and support actions, which are complementary projects. So these are not projects, coordination and support are not projects to develop new solutions, are more to facilitate the development from the part of other projects, to facilitate the management of the programs, to evaluate results. So these are more management. In the past, they were called management actions. They were called specific support actions. They had different names, but these are really more services than projects, and these are also funded 100%. So research and innovation, always 100% for all participants. Innovation action, 70%. Coordination and support actions, 100% for all participants. Having said this, and going to the innovation actions, and the rule applies to all the projects, but because research and innovation, RIAs, and coordination support actions are funded 100% for all, it's not relevant. Innovation actions, it's 70%, but public organizations like cities and not-for-profit associations, they still get 100%. So in fact, the only difference is for profit organizations, profit-oriented organizations like companies. Companies get 70% in innovation actions and get 100% if they participate in a research and innovation actions. Cities always get 100%, regardless of the instrument. For cities, municipalities, public authorities, not-for-profit organizations, associations, all these type of organizations, they always get 100% in Horizon Europe. So you don't really need to care about that, but like it's not always obvious because you may go to, you see it's an innovation action, and then you go to the rules and you see it's 70%. But that's 70% only applies to the commercial-oriented organizations like companies. All the others, they get the public organizations, they get 100%. Okay? That clear? Okay, so once we go through this, so we see what is the instrument. In this call, like I said, the instrument that was relevant for us was innovation action. So we are a private company, we Innova, so we already know that we are going to be funded 70%, but we know that if we invite regions or cities to participate in this call, they are funded 100%. Universities, the same. Research centers, everything that is not commercial oriented, doesn't have the profit as an objective, is funded 100%. But for us, we knew when we saw innovation action and we were interested that it was going to be 70%. And then we go through the bullet points. Whenever you go through a call, normally they have these bullet points when they say the specific challenge or eventually in the scope, what they want. And this is really the important part, because this is the Commission saying, this is what I want to buy. Like I said, I would say that starting from FP7, and now very clearly in H2020, and now even more in Horizon Europe, when we speak about European programs, we are not speaking anymore about co-funding of research, we are talking about innovative public procurement. It's the Commission saying, I want a first solution in this area and I'm paying you in order to develop. And because they are paying, we are saying what we want. And this call, they said, we want you as a proposer to propose and then to implement multi-scale, multi-sectoral, regional adaptation pathways. And then, of course, you need to read between the lines. Sometimes they use some terms like multi-sectoral. For us, we read multi-scale and then especially multi-sectoral, and we also read quadruple helix. Okay, when they say multi-sectoral, regional adaptation pathways, they mean that they want solutions that involve public authorities, but also research, industry, and the citizen. So it's what we often refer as quadruple helix, and we have quite a lot of experience on that. We've been developing that kind of approaches, so it's okay. Then they mention implement and test innovations in key systems. So implement and test and demonstrate their contribution to improve resilience. For me, this reads living labs, or now, which is more fashionable, sandboxes, as an approach to do a closed test in a urban area or in some area to test new policies, new regulations, new approaches. Okay, so living labs, we have some experience, sandboxes, we start to develop some on this. So we are in condition to implement and test innovations in key systems. Prioritize the key systems that most urgently need to be protected, okay. Then prioritize vulnerable European regions or communities. I read vulnerable, and I think who are the most vulnerable regions to climate change? Possible coastal areas, eventually also islands, you know. We have some projects with Madeira, with the Açores, the islands in Portugal, with some other areas. So we start reading through the bullet points. We start already making some first approach, some concept of the proposal. Maybe a project with a quadruple helix approach, using a methodology like living labs or sandboxes for a group of, let's say, coastal regions, which everybody agrees are the most vulnerable, we start to have an idea of what we could develop in here. Then they say, make use of operational climate services like Copernicus. Okay, we have some experience in that. Stimulate wide citizen and stakeholder engagement through co-creation process. That's really one of our specialities. So again, we can recognize, we can relate to the text of the proposal and take stock of existing good practice and solutions from other programs, such as Horizon 2020, Life Plus, and then structural funds programs. So we have experience in all that. So we go through the different bullet points and we can relate to basically everything that the Commission is asking. Multisectoral, check. Implement and test living labs, check. Either we have it or we know organizations that are doing this. Address vulnerable regions. Yes, in Portugal, you know, almost all of the countries is coastal. Same in a lot of other European countries. So we can immediately think about regions that we already work with or can get to that are vulnerable regions. Use of operational climate services, check. Co-creation, check. And experience or building on practices from previous programs, check. So we go through this and say, okay, we are still in the game. 3 to 4 proposals, we can put a competitive proposal, and we can say check to most in this. So this is where we take the decision that, yes, we would like to prepare a proposal for this. Let's think now about specifically City Card, the group of cities that we have in Card for All, and what may be for them in Horizon Europe. In Horizon Europe, we start now to have access to the draft work programs. For instance, this site Science Business. They have this area which they call this is Science Business. This is, you'll be able to see the link, and they've been publishing the draft work papers as they are more or less available. Not all of them are still public available, but they are being given to some national contact points, associations, and then they get to the public. And Science Business created this section called the Horizon Papers, making this analogy with the Panama Papers or the Luxembourgish papers. And they are leaking, in a positive sense, the draft work program. So if you go there, Science Business, if you go to the Horizon Papers, you can find most of the draft work programs that are already published for Horizon Europe. You can see there is the list of the different work programs that are there available. And this one, which covers digital technologies, it's potentially, from the ones that have already been published, the one that could be more relevant, the one that could be more interesting for what we want to do. And if we click there, we'll get to this. This is the February version, the latest version of the draft work program for this specific area. It's a very big document, as you can see. It's more than 400 pages for digital, industry, and space. So it includes the focus on digital technologies, which could be relevant for what we want to do. I would not recommend you to print it and to read the 400 pages at home, before going to sleep. I think it's better if we just go through the index and start seeing already from the titles of the calls that are already announced. So planned for the first 2 years, you can already focus on those which may be more relevant. You can see a lot of them will not be very relevant. And then Destination 6, where it's about human-centered and ethical development of digital and industrial technologies. This starts to relate more with what you want to do. And then there is this specific call already announced, which on testings, innovations, and testing innovative solutions on local communities, which local communities, so it relates to cities, innovative solutions could relate to city cards, and then it's obviously more relevant for what you want to do. So there is already a title, will be Horizon CL4 2021, Human 04. And this could be a call that could be potential interesting for you. We can see the main scope in here, the challenge in here. We can see the budget, first thing. So the budget for this will be 5 million euros, and the size of proposals expected also 5 million euros. So it's one of those where they will fund only one proposal. So this is, like I said, when I see this myself, I'm always a little bit skeptical, but from the ones that I have seen, if we are focusing on city cards, it's still one of the most relevant that we can find. So it's going to be extremely competitive. If only one proposal is to be funded, it's a decent size, 5 million euros, but only one is going to be approved. So we already know that for sure that is going to be competitive. And it's going to be an innovation action. So there you go, 100% for cities and all public or non-profit organization, 70% for companies. So that's what the Commission is trying to find. And then we start to see what is the expected challenge and that they want to achieve. Minute. This is a bit too small now for me to go through in this. But we have this, you can see it. We have this, I have to put this bigger, sorry, otherwise I really cannot read. Let me try to maximize this. Got a slide, oops. Here. Okay.
Yeah, Eurico, maybe
yes?
you can share the link in the chat, or Miguel.
Yes, I will. Let me just continue now, and then I will share the link to the presentation. But you can see it well, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You see the slide in big, right? Because I'm having the presenter's view, so I see it a little bit small.
Okay, I am in a laptop. It's not really big, but I can read.
Okay, fine. Now I can read as well. I was able to maximize it, so now it's okay. And then I will share the link. So this is the call, the one for testing innovative solutions in local communities, like we were seeing, looking for innovative actions, 5 million euros of site. And what are they looking for? Increasing social uptake of new technologies and knowledge-based solutions, increasing place-based innovations and experimentations. They want to test up to 100 innovative new solutions and use new models of co-creation and exchange of good practice and learning from experimentation. With, I would say, especially this last point for a group of cities that came from Urbact. In Urbact was one of the first programs to develop co-creation through the local support groups, exchange of good practice, learning from experimentations, all that we can relate in Urbact. So all that we have experienced. Now we would need to scale this up really to this, demonstrate this and test new innovative solutions for which the city card could be a solution. What do they want also in this call for proposals? They want to implement the European Green Deal objectives, so there should be some sustainable solutions. They want to collect and then match needs of cities and communities with potential suppliers. That is what they're looking for to do. Participating cities and local communities, so they specifically ask for the involvement of cities. So this is a call where they want cities to be involved. And then there will be a cascade funding mechanism in order to fund experiments. So cities may select ideas and then fund them with funds from the project. They may fund the development of new solutions with up to 60,000 euros per each solution. So looking at this, and this is a call that is not yet open, so it's this information we found in the work program. A possible concept could be, for instance, using the city card as a tool to mobilize citizens and bring new ideas that then could be funded through this cascade funding mechanism. So we could imagine a consortium of cities like those that we have in Card for All, possibly with reinforcing with partners more from, and we'll see that solution providers, universities, research, and that could use, it's not clearly a program to develop the city card, but where the city card could be used as a tool to identify demand, to select these third parties, even to vote, to have citizens voting on the best ideas, which then will be funded. So I think this could be a possible innovative approach using in this call. So have a group of cities, all of them already have city cards in place, and then they are going to select, they are going to ask local organizations to propose innovative solutions that may contribute to sustainable development, and then ask citizens to co-participate in the selection of the best ideas, voting using the city card, for instance, as a way to engage the citizens and having them voting. What do you think? Does this make any sense from what you are already doing with city card and from these first ideas on this call? Does this look like a call that could be of interest to have a closer look later on?
Yes, in fact, Gijón is taking part in a Horizon 2020 project about voting, because I mean, I think it's the future, this electronic voting, but the problem is all the risk related to identity, security, and you can also introduce these disruptive technologies like blockchains. So I think it's a good idea to explore the possibilities of voting, and it's also very linked to citizen participation in the future of building communities at local level also.
Yeah, and this is a good example of a call that we can explore some of the functionalities of the citizen card. We know that we will not find an open topic that will mention clearly the citizen card for us to apply. But there are a lot of functionalities that we can explore in some funding opportunities. And this one is a good opportunity that I think that later on we can spend more time analyzing how can we address a concept and a network to develop the citizen card using some of the functionalities that we already have, but using the knowledge that we have to apply to this call.
Yeah. Okay, we will continue using this example. So this was the first point. So looking at a call, either a published one already or one that is still in the draft work program, like the one we've seen. And the sooner we start, the best. So I think the time now to start looking at the draft work programs and selecting the calls that we want to focus is now. If we want to be competitive, selecting already those where the city card could be a plus. And like we've seen, this could be a potential one where city card could be a plus. We already know size, it's a project for 5 million euros that involves cascade funding of small experiments at local level, up to 60,000 each. Only one proposal will be approved, so it's going to be very competitive, but this could be a room for development. My second point, so once we focus on a call and said, yes, we want to go for this, my second suggestion will be to pick some of the terms that are very clearly mentioned in the text of the call and to Google them in order to see where do they lead us, and sometimes they lead us to potential tools, potential partners, and some ways of developing the proposal. So they are a way of enlarging our thinking box, because if we already have one solution in hand, we read the call and we say, yes, we are going to go this way. But if we expand our search, and Google is an easy way of doing it, we can be pointed in other directions that may enrich our proposal. Let's go back to the example first of the Green Deal of this climate resilient innovation packages for regions that we addressed back in January. One thing that appeared very clearly there was this call for vulnerable European regions. And the other thing, it's there in the title, it's climate resilience innovation. So these are two expressions which appear there, and they don't appear there by chance. There is something behind them. If we go, for instance, to vulnerable European regions, and we just Google this term, it will, if we just put this in Google, it will lead us to different places. But for instance, it will take us to ESPON. ESPON has some work on this. And we, for instance, have been involved in ESPON before, so we have some experience. And ESPON produces a lot of reports with a lot of data, a lot of maps, comparative information. And this could be a very good source in order to help us to identify some of the partners and then to develop our proposal. So we had not thought about ESPON before. We immediately were jumping into the regions and what we could do. And yes, maybe it's a good idea to go back, see what ESPON has done in terms of vulnerable regions, and see if this helps us to identify potential partners. And then one of the first results that comes in Google, if you put vulnerable regions, it's about EU outermost regions. So those regions like Azores, Madeira, Canary Islands, or even the French Martinique, Guyana, those really are, because they are in tropical areas or because they are in the middle of the ocean, they are really even more vulnerable than your typical coastal region in Europe. So if you want to have a differentiated proposal, maybe it's a good idea to take an outermost region as one of the partners. And this is something that you wouldn't immediately think, but if you Google the topic, you may be led to this. And then climate resilience innovation. If you do the same thing with climate resilience innovation, so you'll find immediately a reference to innovative public-private solutions. So this can be already a model, and because also the call calls for a multi-sectoral, so this may be behind it. So not just going for public sector, trying to go for public-private platforms. And then it also takes you to an interesting document from the World Bank, which analyzes all the patent data on climate resilient innovation. And you can see who is more active, which regions have been developing more innovation. So you can find a lot of information which will help you in guiding your proposal. So it's always extremely useful to go through the call text, see the terms that pick up your attention, expressions that you haven't heard before, or they are there for a reason, and then see what comes out if you just Google them. If we do the same exercise for this call, the one that we have seen that is still in the draft work program, we find one thing they want is innovative new solutions in partnership with cities and local communities. And they also refer, for instance, the need to co-create and test societal solutions. If we just take the first phrase and go for these innovative new solutions in partnership with cities and local communities, we immediately, the first result is the European Innovation Partnership on Smart Cities, where we can find certainly some partners. And then there is a specific project, Matchup, which is the fourth result that comes when you put this term. So you have to see what this project is about and who are the partners, because it's the first project that comes in reply to the term that is mentioned in the call for proposal. So you cannot ignore these people. And if you go to this Matchup project, so it's a project for transforming cities through innovative solutions and technologies at the service of local communities. So it's exactly what they're asking in the call. You can see who the partners are. There is Valencia, there is Dresden, Ostend, Kerava. So possibly it will be a good idea to contact some of these partners, because this is the best reference that you could find answering this call. And if you go for co-create and test societal solutions, you get a couple of results, but you get this set, so as a toolkit to engage citizens in co-creation innovative results in their cities. So again, this is something that you need to look up. If you want to address this call, you have to see what this set is about. So there is this Smart Cities Marketplace, which has been put forward by the Commission. And then they have this set of tools, and SET is one of them. So it's a specific tool to engage citizens in co-creation. So again, you need to know who is behind this tool, who are the partners, and if you use them in your proposal, in addition to the city card, so if you make a reference to SET, if you say that you are going to use this, also because the call asks also to build up on previous projects, you are already one step ahead of the others. So you are already specifically answering what they want. So this is something, again, my suggestion number 2, that you should always do when preparing to answer for a call. Pick up those terms that call your attention, even if it's long sentence, complete sentences, they don't come out of nowhere. They were put in there in the call text for a reason. Google it, see what comes up. You will find some projects, you will find some tools, potential partners, and these are the people that you need to involve in order to maximize your chances. Any comment on this? I think this is, rather obvious, common sense once you think about it, but sometimes we are so keen on a particular solution that we just move forward without doing this, and then we may miss some valuable points.
Yeah, this is more or less the local group, how we build the local group in URBAC projects. We need also to look to the usual suspects, but also we need to bring the unusual suspects to our local group. But this is not a local group, it's more at the European level. We need to identify partners at the European level in other member states that will cover scientific partners, private partners, institutions, so all kind of organizations that can help to build a strong consortium. But I think that the skills that we get from building our local groups will also help to build this international consortium.
Yeah, for sure. And as we've seen more and more now, the Horizon Europe projects, they call for stakeholder engagement, they call for co-creation, they call for co-decision, and all these are things that we've been doing in Eurbac for quite a long time. And now they are being called in most of the Horizon Europe projects. So this is really an experience that we need to take advantage of. And this will take us down to point 3. So point 1, is this a call for us? Okay, check. Point 2, okay, looking at the main terms, which directions can I go? And we've seen this. We may look at this project, we may look at this matchup, we may look at this set tool. And now point 3 is, which core partners do I need? So we're not going to do this alone, for sure. We cannot participate alone in Horizon Europe. We may have already some partners in mind that we worked with before, like in Card for All, we already have a group of cities, but there are other usual suspects that we can refer to. Again, let's take this first example from the Green Deal. So this is what the call asked for. They asked for region-specific portfolios of R&D solutions. And I read this, and I think, for instance, regions and research and innovation, I think of this ERIN, this European Research, Regional Research and Innovation Network. So this is a network based in Brussels of research organizations in regions. So I read region-specific portfolios of R&D solutions, I think ERIN. I start thinking of a partner which may bring value to the proposal. Then I read financing, that they are also looking for new financial, and I think, okay, maybe we should involve in some level as a partner, as a letter of interest, the European Business Angel Network, Business Angel Europe, the European Venture Capital Association. If financing is important, I will need some funding partners. And then going through the bullet points like we've seen before, multi-sectoral, we need someone that brings expertise in quadruple helix, complementary to the one that we already have. Living labs or sandboxes. For instance, I think of the Catholic University in Leuven, which we brought into this proposal that we presented, because they are amongst the most pioneering in sandboxing in Europe. We think about prioritizing key systems, maybe someone in statistical analysis experts. Going back to ESPON, this is where organizations with experience of ESPON that have been doing maps of the most vulnerable regions, this is where they can be of help, where we can go and look for some partners. Vulnerable, we've done our Google benchmark. We've seen that vulnerable may be associated with outermost regions. Petros? Petros? Let me mute you. Okay. So we may need at least one outermost region in order really to address this point. Then making use of operational climate services, the European Space Agency, or someone that used to work with the European Space Agency, the Joint Research Center, they also have a lot of things in this. So this could be two very relevant partners for this proposal. Stakeholder engagement, we should have a specific partner with experience in stakeholder engagement. In our case, it was ZCI from Austria, and then experience in Horizon 2020, we can cover that ourselves. But for sure, in addition to the regions that we will need organizations with experience in quadruple helix, in sandboxes, in statistical analysis, at least one outermost region, someone with experience in Copernicus, someone with experience in stakeholder engagement. These are the kind of partners that we need. Doing the same exercise for this new call under Horizon Europe, we see that they want increased social uptake of new technologies and knowledge-based solutions. So cities cannot do it alone. For sure, they will need to involve someone with already this portfolio of new solutions. So research and innovation providers, universities, research centers. So this should be involved in each of the cities or regions that participates. Then they mention that they want to develop, or the proposal to develop 100 innovative, up to 100 innovative new solutions in partnership with cities and local communities. So there is a specific call for local communities, and here we may think citizens associations or any type of association that can represent local communities in addition to the city itself. Then we have the reference to new models of co-creation and the exchange of good practice. Again, we may think of living labs, sandbox, specialists, organizations that are used to run these living labs in association with cities. And then when we think the needs of cities and communities, we may think about the city card as a tool and bring in city card developers, IT companies that may help to develop the solution. And then it's very clear that this proposal will provide financial support to third parties, so there will be a cascade funding mechanism. So we should also have organizations that have experience in running cascade funding. So cities for sure, we will need to involve cities, but we'll also need research centers, citizens associations, living labs, or similar organizations with experience of living labs, IT companies, if we go for the city card approach, and organizations that know how to manage cascade funding. Once we have an idea who we want to involve, then the trick is to move fast, because especially if only one proposal is going to be funded, the best partners are going to be very sought after, so we should make sure that we get to them first. If we want, for instance, sandboxing, if we go for sandboxing, Leuven is going to be invited by different organizations, so we should be the first to involve them in our consortium. It's always, especially if you're preparing a proposal for Horizon Europe, it's always a good advice to sign a memorandum of understanding. If you can, with an exclusivity clause. Some partners may not want it because they want to be in several proposals, but at least you should suggest, you should ask for it. You may make it mandatory or not, but it's always good to have a memorandum of understanding to set the rules saying we are going to prepare a proposal together so that there is some level of engagement. You are going to share confidential information or at least sensitive information with these people. So to put things in writing, to sign a MOU in preparation for the writing of proposal, it's always a good idea. Then, as soon as you have the core partners defined, start to assign responsibilities. My advice will be to set the budget as soon as possible. This is a mistake that I have seen in a lot of Horizon 2020 proposals. It's that you put the partners together, you start developing the proposal, but you leave the budget for the end, and then it's a nightmare because people may have higher expectations, then you don't have enough budget to give them. People may leave the consortium at the very end, you may ruin very good working relations. So the best is, before you start writing the proposal, do a very first draft budget. What is the budget for each of the core partners? Share it with the other partners, put it if possible in the MOU, so that anyone that is contributing to a proposal knows my budget will be 200,000 or 400,000, plus or more, plus some thousands more, some thousands less, but to set the expectations from the very beginning. The sooner you set the financial envelope, the better, and you avoid a lot of problems in the future. As soon as you have a core partnership, you should develop your budget. And then to have regular meetings, but short, again, I've been involved in some proposals which had weekly meetings of almost 3 or 4 hours, and nobody can stand this. So yeah, I think it's good to meet often, to keep pace of the development of the proposal, but half an hour, maximum 1 hour meeting per week, it's more than enough. But if you are developing the proposal, you need to show leadership. So there is a leading partner, the coordinator, and you must assume most of the work in developing the proposal. Any question so far on this development of the consortium, so engaging partners?
Yes, Eurico. Because, I mean, in your case, you have a lot of experience and you know a lot of people and organization. But I mean, if it's your first time, I think it's difficult to identify the right partners. Or where can you find? I mean, there is like a place where you can find interest to join the different proposals, or yeah, because I am about we have an idea about a project, and in the case of Gijón, okay, Gijón has a lot of experience and know a little bit about the European organization, but for one city that has not a lot of experience, how these cities should face this process of partner searching?
Yeah, and this is one of the key aspects, because it's teamwork, it's a consortium, and the first thing that evaluators, when they start going through your proposal, that they will see is the list of partners. So even before reading the proposal, they will see who is in there. So having the right partners, especially for this call for proposals that select only 1 or 2, 3 proposals, it's essential. There are some organizations which are already known for working in this area, and if you have them in your consortia, you are already one step ahead. So it's really important to have the right partners. There is a place in each proposal. If you go to the participants portal, if you go to the space for that topic, there is an area for expressions of interest where organizations that want to be involved in projects have expressed their interest. So you go there and you see that there are 20, 30 organizations that are looking to participate in some consortium. But typically these are not the good partners. The good partners don't need to express their interest. Either they are themselves preparing a proposal, or the call is not yet open and they already received 4 or 5 invitations to participate. So there, if you have a very specific need, if you are missing one partner, you may look there in that expression of interest area of the call in the participants portal, but you are not going to find the most relevant partners. The best way to find the partners is by Google searching them, as I said, is going to the terms that are used in the call, putting them on Google and seeing who comes along. Like we've seen for this new topic, and when we put this innovative solution for local communities, we were led immediately to the Matchup project. Now, all the partners in that Matchup will be good partners for your proposal, because they are already doing this in another project. So they immediately, if you have some links with some of those 5 cities, Valencia, Dresden, they immediately will be good partners. And they will bring other partners, possibly. They will suggest a local university, an R&D provider, an association. But it's by picking up the terms in the call, Googling them, and see who comes along. If you put Sandbox, for instance, you'll get immediately one of the first results will point you to the Catholic University in Leuven. If you put Living Lab, you'll go to the European Association of Living Labs. And then you can go there and see if there is anyone that you already know. So I think the best way, if you already have some concept, it's picking up in the call the right terms, Googling them, and see who comes on top. Those are the most valuable partners.
I suppose that also before, I mean, now it's impossible, but before, when the European Union organized these big events related to living labs or these fairs, or, I mean, there were like big topic events, it's also a good place to find these informal chat-to-chat meetings. But
yes, for sure.
That always I have the impression that the Horizon 2020 is like a club for some cities and also for some institutions, and it's very difficult to join a partnership. I mean, in our case, I think Gijón is already in the club, but it took us quite a lot of years to find the right contacts that invite us to join a project, because always it was like a close group for people that, I mean, maybe they are high level, maybe they are big cities, but it's not easy to join a partnership.
It's true. It's true. That's. I think I share the same feeling. That's what it is. It's one of those clubs where each member can always invite new members. You know, that's so it keeps enlarging. That's good. So if you know someone that is already a member, it can bring you in. It can invite you to their proposals, and then you become a member yourself. If you don't know any member, if that's not your way to get in, you have to elbow your way in. And the best way is to make your own proposal and try to make it good. If you are able to develop your own proposal, and maybe not at the first attempt or the second, but at the third or the fourth, you get it approved, you start to get known, and you invite other organizations, which probably some of them are already club members, and then they invite you because they've seen that you can work well, and then you'll elbow your way into the club. So I think there are two ways to get into this club, either by getting friendly with already established members, and they start to invite you, or proving your worth, putting your proposal, inviting other organizations, newcomers, established members, showing that you can lead, that you can put a strong proposal, and then they start to get to know you, and they start to invite you to participate as well.
Yes, I always say here internally to my politicians that the Horizon 2020 is like the Champions League in football.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So you have to win your national league first.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
You have to get experience in your national league, regional projects, national projects, and then you have to scale up, and then you have to win your group, and then to go to the semifinals and things like that. It's clearly not something that you can expect. I have a brilliant idea, I will answer this call, I will win. It may happen, but normally it doesn't work like that. You need to continuously screen calls, see the ones that you can participate, identify some that you want to lead, in others starting making contacts to be there as a partner, and to be in 10 proposals every year so that you have 1 or 2 approved. We have always to consider at the very best a success rate of 10%. Even the most established club members, they have success rates of 10% or less, but they are in a lot of proposals. If every year they are in 100 proposals, someone like Fraunhofer or the big universities, they are in more than 100 proposals every year, and they get 10 projects approved every year, but it's still a 10% success rate. And if you want to have 1, you need to be in 10 proposals, not immediately, but that's what you have to aim for. So picking your call, saying, yes, I can answer to this, expanding your horizons by Googling a lot, starting to identifying partners, seeing what kind of core partners you need, selecting 4 or 5 organizations that can help you. And then what you should do to really expand your proposal is this one-page proposal. If you get a good one-page proposal, you have the perfect starting point. This is what you need to have. And this is something more or less like this. It's a one page that says what is the call that you are answering, what is the topic that you are answering, so that it's clear that you're answering to this human 04 tentative, whatever we have seen. If you have already a title that can identify your proposal, the better. Then what is the big challenge that you are addressing? And then the background, which is the relevant part. Why is your proposal different? And then who are the partners that you already have? And very shortly, what is the expected duration? What is the expected budget? And all this, most of this information comes from the call itself. The topic, the duration, typically 36 months, the budget, the one we've seen, 5 million euros. That's what they are looking for, so we don't need to be different. So it's this central part, it's the background that will differentiate our proposal. And if you have this one-page proposal, you can present it to potential partners. You can email them already what you have so that they see that you are already working on it. You can email it to national contact points so that they know that you're working on this. If you have contacts in the Commission, you can email them and say, I'm thinking about this. especially if the call is not yet open. What do you think? Can you give me some feedback? So you can use this in order to promote and expand your proposal. And the key part is this background. And these are the 5 questions that you need to answer. First of all, you need to put in as much facts and figures as possible. This is something that immediately captures the people's mind. And then the questions that you must address in a couple of paragraphs, we are talking about a 1 page, is why are we bothering? So why are we doing this proposal? What problem are we solving? Why is this a European priority? Why is this not yet available? On what are we building? Whatever we already done, and what are we going to do different? Why now? And why we? Why this group of people, this group of organizations, you know? And this is something that then should be translated in the first page of the proposal, and it should be immediately gather the key message that you want to pass. No? First trick is to use facts and figures as much as possible. No? Numbers immediately capture people's attention. No? If you check out a kiosk for the front pages of the newspapers from today, you will see that most headlines, most of the headlines start with a number. They start with 20. Now it's the number of deaths in COVID that you'll find quite often, the number of infected people. But numbers immediately capture people's attention. And sometimes, if you want to capture people's attention, it's better to go for obscure numbers like 19 or 37 than to go to 1,000. 1,000 looks something, a round figure, 2,000 to 2,337 may catch more people's attention than just 2,000, The principles that we are now going quickly through it in order to write this summary of your proposal for this 1 page that will help you to expand are the same that, people in the press use to write their headlines and the summaries of the main news. The idea is to catch people's attention and to prove them that you can do a good proposal. So start with facts and figures, then move on to the problem that you're trying to solve, the why bothering. And in here, it's always a good idea. Don't try to be too scientific at this point. You're trying to summarize the idea, the problem in 1 page. So don't go about a technical description of the problem. Try to go for emotional objectives that make people relate to what you're doing. Things like effortless, incredible, essential, absolute, the more adjectives you use in here in order to describe the problem, the better. Then, next 2 questions, is this a European priority, and which solution are you building when? I think then it's where you should use unique rationale to demonstrate what you will get out of the project. Things like the reasons why we are doing this, the principles, the facts, the lessons on which we are building, ideas, ways, secrets, patents, tricks. So things that show that you are building on things that were already developed, but you are going further and you're going at European level. And if you can use what, why, how, and when, it's again the basic rules that you use for the headline are the rules that you should use to develop this. And then when it comes to the why why are you the best people to do this work, you should always end up with a strong promise. And we will deliver this, we will change this, we will make a best solution, we will make cities more sustainable, whatever, as a promise. So if you're writing this middle part, the summary of your proposal for the 1 page synopsis, the best formula that you can have to writing this description of your idea in a single paragraph is to have this number, start by a number or a trigger word, plus adjectives, plus some keywords about what you're doing, and ending with the promise. If you put this formula together, facts, figures, numbers, adjectives, keywords, and promise, you'll get to some powerful statement that will help you to mobilize people for the proposal that you are doing. No? An example which will be very difficult to use in Horizon Europe, but will give you an idea of what we are doing in here. Take the problem of buffing elephants. No? If you want to develop a proposal about buffing elephants, no? You could say that this proposal shows how to buff an elephant, or this proposal is why you should buff elephants. You know, okay, it goes to the problem, but it doesn't immediately capture people's attention. But if you say this proposal will address 18 unbelievable ways you can buff an elephant indoors, you know, the elephant indoors being the promise, you know, it will for sure make people more curious about what this will be, and that this is going to be a differentiated proposal. So figure 18 ways or 15 regions. That's what we've done in the Green Deal proposal. We said we are involving 15 European regions to develop climate resilient new solutions, ending up with 5 new tools that can be used to improve the sustainability for 60 million people in Europe. Figure, adjectives, unbelievable ways, keywords, in this case, buff an elephant, that's the keyword, and then the promise, the odious promise, which you are concluding whatever you are doing. If you can use this formula for presenting your proposal, then you'll be able to have a good description that will attract more partners and more influencers, national contact points, commission officers for what you are doing. So then you need to put this together: topic, name of your proposal, the main objective, the background, which will be this paragraph written in the way that we have seen, what you propose to do with the promise, with the adjectives, with the figures, and then just, if you can, describe the main stages in which you are doing, the main partners, cost and duration, and this is what you need in order to put your proposal moving. Any question? No? Any ideas for a catchy headline for this proposal that we have seen? Anyone want to suggest something? What you may put together as cities, as in one sentence, one short sentence, what you could do?
Yeah, the logo for Card for All, I think it's quite catchy because it's your city in your pocket.
Yeah.
It's short, it sounds good, and it's easy to remember, to have in our memory. And also it brings the citizen card to people because it's in your pocket. But of course that there are, if we go for a different functionality of the citizen card, we will need to have other kind of catchy sentences to develop an idea in terms of that catchy sentence.
But that's the spirit, you know. For Card for All, it's about the city card. If we decide to move for this call for proposals, the city card is a tool, but what we are expected is to help local stakeholders, startups, associations, companies to develop ideas with the participation of the citizens. So something like, you know, taking ideas out of the pocket, you know, out of the pocket and into the field, something like this as the motto, as the concept for the proposal. So taking ideas out of the citizens' pockets and into the urban environment, something like this would be a good point to start.
Yeah.
Any other suggestion? Other ideas that you may have for this call or for other possible calls on the horizon, and that could be expanded, and that you'd like to propose in here, and we could discuss a little bit how we could try to make them more attractive? No? Okay, so we move on. We are coming close to the end. We are going to try to reserve at least 15, 20 minutes just for wrap up and to see if we have final ideas, or if we don't, we close earlier. once we have this one-page proposal, and specifically this juicy, catchy paragraph or statement in the middle that describe what we are able to do, like what we've seen here, an expansion of Card for All, taking ideas out of the pocket and into the urban infrastructure, into the urban development. This could be an example of this catchy statement. Once we have it, we should use it as more as possible. The one-page proposal in which we have this statement together with the description of the topic, the partners, that's a more formal document. Like we said, that we can email to potential partners, to national contact points, to commission contacts, to promote. But we can also use it for meetings. We can use it internally to see if other units or areas in our organization, in our city can contribute. And we can also, with this JC statement, we can use it for social media. And my suggestion will be, if you're preparing a proposal, if you know that you are going forward with it, the sooner you start to use LinkedIn and other networks to make some noise that you are preparing this proposal together with these partners and using this juicy, catchy statement, the better. Think about this. For instance, in LinkedIn, each one of us has typically, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 contacts. There is a very good chance if you put some posts on LinkedIn and then these are reshared by your potential partners, other people that are involved in the proposal, you'll be reaching 50,000, 100,000 people. There is a very good chance that you reach one of the evaluators that is going to evaluate your proposal, So if you read some comments, some posts in LinkedIn that you are working in this, that you are working with other cities to take ideas out of the pocket and put them into the field by funding new experiments, he will be much more receptive when he starts evaluating your proposal, you will not be unknown. What you are doing is not unknown. He said, I've read something in LinkedIn about this. I knew these people were working on this. This sounds serious. And you can do this while you prepare the proposal, after submission, and all the time in which the evaluation should be taking place. The more posts in LinkedIn and other social networks you do, the better. So use this statement that you've created for your summary of your proposal, or if your proposal is already ready, you can develop other statements about what you are doing in the different work packages, about the different partners, different cities that you are involved, and try to create at least one post every day about that, about what you are proposing. There is a very good chance that you will reach some of the evaluators, because evaluators are your peers, are people that are working in this field. If they are going to evaluate your proposal, it's because they are also involved in this area. So there is a very good chance that they are in your LinkedIn contacts or in the contacts of your partners. So do some posts, ask your partners to do the same, reshare what they post, ask them to reshare what you post, and try to make as much noise about your proposal as possible. I've been doing this for this Green Deal proposal that I've gave you the example that we submitted. If you see my activity in LinkedIn, every day I'm posting something related to this proposal, with the regions that we involve, about the co-creation that we are doing, other co-creation projects, about our involvement in sustainable activities. So every day I'm posting something, hoping that, when some evaluator picks up our proposal, this already rings a bell and, lights a bulb in his mind that we've been doing this already for some time. Is it something that you normally do already?
Rico, do you think that LinkedIn is the right social network? Because, in our case, we don't have an organization LinkedIn. We have and as civil servants, we are not, it's not forbidden, but it's not recommendable to use LinkedIn network.
Yeah, I personally, I like LinkedIn, so I tend to use this one more, but we can be Twitter, I think it should be preferably more professional oriented social networks. So LinkedIn is a good example of that. Twitter can also be a good example, but you should use the ones that you are more engaged, where you have more contacts, where your network is bigger. If you have a very small network in LinkedIn, it doesn't make any sense to use it. But if you have a lot of followers in Twitter, then you should use Twitter. So whatever network you have, more contacts. But the sooner and the more you post about your activities related to your proposal, the better. That I would say. Not putting anything confidential, of course, not putting too much details about your work plan. You don't want to spoil the surprise. You still want that it appears fresh and innovative. But trying to demonstrate that you already have some experience, that you are a relevant player in this. If Rijon is doing a proposal for testing innovative solutions for local communities, you should put as many posts or tweets about what you already have done in this area as possible, so that they may reach someone that will then evaluate the proposal, and then they will see Rijon as someone already experienced in this area. So that would be my recommendation. I think that's one of the ways. Of course, it's calls for evaluation of proposals. It's a serious matter, and there are no ways of influencing the evaluation. The only way is to make promotion by the ways that are open and admissible, and this is one of the ways. So it's there, it's open, you should use it. There is no other way to try to influence the evaluation. You don't know who the evaluators are going to be, but like I said, there's a very good chance if you have submitted a proposal with 10 partners, if each of the partners has 3 or 4 people involved, so we are already talking about 40 people. If each of these 40 people has 1,000 contacts, we are talking with some duplications, 40,000 contacts. It's almost certain that the evaluators are going to be amongst these contacts. So one way of trying to influence them positively is to let them know what you are doing in this area. So by posting or tweeting as many information as you can. Okay, so final remarks. These are some hints for trying to select the most relevant topics for you, seeing if you fit the topic, trying to find the relevant partners, trying to write a first summary, making some noise about it. And then, of course, you need to develop the proposal. And like I said in the beginning, we are not going to enter in how you develop the proposal in here, but some very quick tips for writing the proposal, Proposals for Horizon Europe, like H2020 before, they have 3 sections. I would say that section 1, excellence, should really be written by technology people that understand the technical solution. Impact should be written by business people, marketeers, and then implementation should be written by the different partners. If you have a consortium of 5 organizations and each of the partners is responsible by a different work package, they should write their own work package and they should contribute very heavily to the implementation section. They can also contribute to the other sections, of course, but at least the implementation section should be developed as a team effort by the different partners, reflecting the importance that they have in the proposal. Impact must be written by business people. It's more and more a business plan nowadays. So you should not have research people, technology people writing the impact section. You really need to have people with a market vision for whatever kind of project, while technology people should be more involved in the excellence section. It's important that the first 2 pages are very catchy, but then the rest, the concept, the methodology, the state of the art, the state of innovation, should really be written by people that know the technical solution in depth. But, it's very difficult to have one person writing a full proposal, Either it's a very skilled person, but otherwise it's better to have someone for the section 1, another person with different profile for section 2, and someone coordinating with the whole consortium section 3. In my experience, this is what makes the good proposals. The first page of the proposal should build on the summary that you've written before, and that's really for professional writers. Like we say very often, now most of the evaluations are done now. All the evaluations are done remotely because of COVID, but even before, all the evaluations now are done remotely. So experts evaluate proposals at home in parallel with their normal activities, professional activities. So normally they evaluate proposals end of the day when they are at home, so they don't have a lot of time. And they have to evaluate a lot of proposals, So it's not abnormal that they make their decision in the first couple of pages, They like the first pages, they go and they look for positive arguments in the proposal. They don't like it, they go and they look for negative. So the first 2 pages normally defines the attitude of the evaluator towards the proposal. So the first page is absolutely essential. It should be a summary of all the proposal. It should have excellence elements. It's part of the excellence section because you don't have a preamble. You don't have a summary. You start immediately with excellence. So the first page, it's part of excellence, but it should have excellence. It should have impact. It should have implementation, a little bit of everything. Very strong promises, what you're going to achieve, your added value. You really have to win the evaluators in the first page. It's if you have the time, and you should have, if you start soon, you should always have internal reviewers for the proposal. So for each writer, if you have one person writing the proposal, you should have 2 people reviewing it, acting if they were evaluators. So once you have a first draft of the proposal, have some people that didn't take part in the writing, so they are reading it for the first time, and they are going through it and spotting mistakes and saying this could be better and this is not clear. So for every writer, you should have 2 evaluators. If you have 3 writers, 1 per section, you should have 6 reviewers, internal reviewers doing this pre-screening of the proposal. This is the way to ensure a sound proposal with the good chances of being approved. You need to engage your key partners. If you have a large consortium, I would not suggest that everyone is writing the proposal at the same time. I think you need to have a core team of writers, at least 1 per section, but you should involve the key partners, especially for the work packages. So if one partner is leading work package 2, he has to develop work package 2. He has to write it because he is responsible for that. But at the same time, you need to ensure a cohesive style. So someone in the end should do the final checking, should do the style checking and confirm that everything is okay. And of course, before submission, you have to do a good spell check, make sure that there are no mistakes, and the graphic revision. If you are doing a lot of Horizon proposals, it's a good suggestion to have an internal graphic person, a designer or something like that, because the difference that they can make in a proposal just by adding some graphics, a coherent style, in a couple of hours or 1 day work of a designer can make wonders for a proposal. It makes it look much more professional, much better than if it's not worked by a professional designer. So if you are doing 10 Horizon proposals per year, I think that already justifies to have an internal designer just to look at that and improve the quality of the proposals. Or you can have it done externally, or if some partner has it inside the consortium, he can take that graphic revision on his side. But that's something that clearly should be done before submission. Comments? This was it from my side. So we open the floor now for any comments that you may have, issues, suggestions. Let us know. I know it's late, and I always promise not to speak too much, but I always speak a lot. So now it's your opportunity if you have something to say.
So, Eurico, first, of course, let me thank you for the two sessions. I think that it comes on the right moment on the project, because we are reaching the end of the project in May. So these two sessions comes on the right moment to understand how can we do after the URBAC project finish. And I think that looking to these two presentations in the first session and now, I think that we, based on the work that we developed on Car4All, and also on the complementary work developed on the EuroCities lab, I think that we have a lot of good material to build a proposal. Some of the comments that you made here about the relevance of the network, about good background knowledge to kick off a good proposal, about also the link between the different levels of partners that we need to engage. We have cities. In the local groups, we have private organizations, developers, we have universities, research institutes in our local groups. So around Car4All, we have almost 100 organizations that during 2 years work together, some of them at local level, others at European level. So I really believe that we have a good starting point to make a competitive proposal in Horizon Europe. But my question is about, with your experience, what will be the next step for us? Looking as the Car4All network, and also bringing other cities from EuroCities, but also other cities that join us in this session that do not belong to Car4All. What can we do after we finish the project in May? What should be our next steps?
I think that it will be important to keep the consortium together, you know, and for that to start some effort, a joint proposal for a new program. I think it's the best way. Otherwise, it's difficult to keep the momentum and to keep the network that has been created, you know. For much that we say that even if there is no project running, we will keep on the contact, you know, it's people are then taken by other initiatives and that gets lost. I think it will be important to try to spot an opportunity as soon as possible. I went through like I said, through the draft work programs. I identified this one that I've shown you, but there may be more, you know. I think it will be important still within Car4All as one of the tasks to look at Horizon Europe, eventually other programs, but for the now, what is more advanced is Horizon Europe. Look at the draft work programs, try to identify already an opportunity and put already things in motion to start preparing for that. So following more or less the steps we've seen in this training, trying to identify, is this the right call? Okay, who is the core partners? So we are the core partners. Who else do we need? Starting to try to define a core consortium and then defining a 1-2 pages concept so that you may have it ready to start to expand it. I think the sooner the project is able to do this, to identify an opportunity that can keep the momentum and the network together and active, the better. This call I identified could be one. Like I said, it's a risky one because it's only to approve one project. There may be more, but I think it will be worthwhile to scan the draft work programs, identify one opportunity, and start pointing to that. Even if in the end it's not successful, the network will still be together. You have been working together for this, and then the work that has been developed can be used for other opportunities. So you already been card 2.0, no? The use of the city card for within the spirit of Horizon Europe. If not for this call, for another one. I think the sooner the project is able to start with this, the better.
So Eurico, it's always better to start with the call and to see how to fit the idea, because I have always the same questions, because I don't know if it's better to start brainstorming and to see if any ideas fit to one call or the other way, to identify the call and to see how your idea fit the call. I don't know if you understand me. There are like
perfect.
Yes.
I think as the way Horizon has been developing, it's better to start from the call. now. Because like I said, it's not bottom up anymore. If you put some effort in developing the idea, you may never find a call that will fit the idea. I know, and Miguel knows as well, some time ago we've met a consortium that have a very good idea, and they were looking for the right call, and they were having meetings and traveling and participating in exhibitions, trying to develop it, and they could never find the right call. The more the idea was developed, less likely it was to find a call for such a specific idea. Yeah. So I was giving this example of a consortium that developed the idea so much that they could never find a call. And the more they develop the idea, less likely they will find a call for such a specific idea. So I think now when the Commission opens a call, it's like this in Horizon Europe, but it's getting like this in all the programs. They know what they want. So we have first to find the call and then look at what we have, the tools, the resources, the partners, the previous projects, and develop it for that call. And then, if we are not successful, we can always reuse it and refine it for another call, but we should always start from the call.
Yes, it's a good point. Yeah. So we have to keep our eyes open to the different calls, and if we identify one, maybe we can organize some meetings outside the Car for All project. I mean, not only for Car for All partners and members.
Yes, it should be larger. And the calls for the first 2 years of Horizon Europe, they are already not the dates, but they are already published in the draft work program. So if you go through the draft work programs, you can see all the calls that will appear in 2021 and 2022. And more than that is already too far away, to keep the momentum. So it should be for one of these calls that are already published in the draft work programs. So you need to select one and point your batteries to that one, and then try to keep the momentum going with the preparation for that call.
So, Rico, you probably know this. It's Hans speaking here. Yeah. What about the participation of non-European partners? There was a time in the past when that seemed to be quite welcome. How do you see the situation for the next 7 years? Would it be advantageous to invite my colleagues from Japan or New Zealand, or would it be seen to be kind of a waste of resources and energies?
I say again, it depends on the call. When they see this as a plus, it's mentioned in the call normally. It mentions, for instance, we would encourage sharing of good practice with the United States or Canada or Australia. If it's mentioned in the call, you should go for it. If it's not mentioned in the call, either it's really an exceptional added value that they bring, or I will not go for it. Right. Like I said, nowadays, everything that they want is mentioned in the call text. Right. They are very specific about what they want. Right. All the hints are there. If it's not there, it's not worth it.
Thank you.
Okay, more questions? Okay, so if not, I think that we can just say the final words, Laura. And thanks to Rico by this contribution. So Rico will stay with us until the end of the project. So if some new information comes about calls that we can apply, Eureka will let us know. But we still have a lot of work to do until May, right, Laura? And we have 2 transitional meetings to organize and the final meeting in Gijón to organize. So there are a lot to do until the end of the project. But I think that we have time and we are doing a good job and in the end, we will present very good results. So from my side, and I close here, thank you to all for the participation. So, Laura?
Yes, thank you, Eurico, for all the tips. I mean, I've taken a lot of notes because sometimes they are obvious comments, but it's always good to have the point of view of an evaluator. And yes, as Miguel said, we are going to organize 2 transnational meetings. We are now in the sharing period, so if there is some activities that are also interesting for you, the non-Car4All members, we are going to keep you updated because we can invite you to some site visits. We are now working in the different agendas, and also if we organize other sessions, we are also invite you. You are part of the Car4All community. And related to the future proposals, our intention is to start working, and if we identify with the help of Eurico and Miguel interesting call, also we count with you. And yeah, that's all for the moment. It was really nice, the session and the training, and it's time to start working. And I mean, it's going to be hard times because now we are at the beginning of a new programming period. We have also the next generation funding plus the regular funding. So we're going to have a lot of opportunities to work together, I think, in the future.
Yes, thank you.
Have a nice day.
Very, very useful.
Yeah, thank you. And I will make you all the presentations, this presentation and the previous.
Okay, bye-bye then.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Yeah, bye.
Bye.